As Mercury retrogrades from November 10th to November 29th through the intense sign of Scorpio and then briefly returns to the airy and relationship-oriented sign of Libra, the collective energy shifts into a deep introspective phase. It is essential to note that these interpretations are based on Sidereal or Vedic Astrology, which accounts for the approximately 24-degree difference with the tropical zodiac. Mercury retrograde is often misunderstood as a period only associated with communication mishaps and delays. This particular cycle carries far deeper implications. With Mercury beginning its retrograde journey in Scorpio, the sign of transformation, secrecy, psychology, karmic connections, and emotional depth, this transit asks us to revisit the corners of our mind and emotional landscape where truth has been buried. Scorpio governs mysteries, hidden fears, unresolved trauma, power dynamics, and intuitive intelligence. When Mercury slows down in this area, we do not simply reevaluate communication, we reevaluate hidden motivations, unconscious patterns, emotional attachments, and karmic cycles. It becomes a season of uncovering what has been repressed, understanding what drives us beneath the surface, and acknowledging the truths that shape our instincts and decisions. During this retrograde, Mercury is joined by Mars in Scorpio, creating a potent and fiery mix of mental sharpness and emotional intensity. Mars energizes Mercury's curiosity, but also heightens impatience and emotional reaction. Words carry more fire, and thoughts can become obsessive or deeply investigative. This combination supports healing conversations, psychological introspection, and confronting long-standing emotional knots, but only if approached with patience and self-awareness. It is easy during this period to misunderstand others or act impulsively out of hurt pride or buried anger. Rather than engaging in emotional battles or forcing outcomes, this is a time to pause, question motivations, and look inward first. Scorpio demands emotional honesty, not reaction. On November 16th, the Sun enters Scorpio, joining Mercury and Mars. This intensifies the focus on secrets, psychological evolution, and spiritual depth. The Sun in Scorpio brings illumination to hidden matters, what we may have avoided, denied, or suppressed. Ego wounds surface not to weaken us but to strengthen our awareness. Emotional vulnerability becomes the path to empowerment. At the same time, Jupiter in exalted Cancer casts its benevolent aspect onto Scorpio, offering wisdom and spiritual guidance throughout this intense cycle. Although Jupiter is retrograde, its presence supports emotional intelligence, intuitive clarity, and healing from past experiences. This transit encourages us to trust our inner teacher more than external validation. Saturn remains retrograde in Pisces during this period, completing a tri-retrograde influence in water signs. Saturn pushes us to discipline our emotional reactions, refine spiritual understanding, and take karmic responsibility. With Mercury, Jupiter, and Saturn retrograde together, emotional reality becomes more important than material progress. This is not a phase for fast decisions or outward expansion. Rather, it is a karmic reset period, repairing inner structures, refining beliefs, and realigning emotional truths before moving forward. On November 23rd, Mercury retrogrades back into Libra, shifting the mental atmosphere from introspective emotional depths to relational dynamics, communication, fairness, balance, and diplomacy. While Scorpio explores emotional honesty, Libra focuses on harmony, clarity in relationships, and the recalibration of social and interpersonal connections. This phase helps us review past agreements, misunderstandings, relational patterns, and unspoken expectations. Conversations may resurface from earlier months, especially those requiring closure or honesty. Partnerships, whether romantic, professional, or spiritual, come into focus for evaluation. Libra energy asks whether our connections are built on fairness, mutual respect, and sincere understanding, or whether we have sacrificed our voice to keep peace or avoided truth to avoid conflict. Just days after this shift, Venus exits Libra and enters Scorpio, adding emotional depth to the mental and relational recalibration. While Mercury returns to sort out balance and justice, Venus begins a journey into transformative emotional territory, reminding us that love and intimacy require truth, vulnerability, and emotional courage. The heart and mind temporarily travel opposite directions, one seeking harmony and review, the other seeking depth and transformation. This creates a fertile moment for aligning emotional truth with intellectual understanding. Mercury retrograde in Scorpio and Libra becomes a period not just of rethinking and revisiting but of emotional cleansing and psychological rebirth. It asks us to examine what we fear, what we hide, what we cling to, and what narratives we tell ourselves. It teaches us that clarity often emerges only when we turn inward, confront shadow emotions, and release outdated beliefs and emotional residues. Scorpio dissolves illusions. Libra rebalances truth. During this retrograde, sudden insights, intuitive breakthroughs, emotional realizations, and revelations about relationships, finances, past decisions, and karmic bonds are likely. Dreams may intensify, emotional sensitivity heightens, and communication may feel slower yet more meaningful. Rather than resisting delays or misunderstandings, use them as doorways to deeper self-awareness. This is not a time for impulsive decisions, major agreements, or rushed commitments. It is a period for reflection, healing, forgiveness, and conscious communication. Journaling, meditation, revisiting old teachings, and settling unfinished emotional or intellectual business becomes fruitful. When Mercury turns direct on November 29th, clarity returns gradually, but with a deeper understanding of ourselves and others. We exit this cycle more grounded in emotional truth, better aligned with our values, and ready to approach life with renewed clarity. It's crucial to recognize Mercury symbolizes communication influenced by surroundings, mirroring how conversations reflect one's company. In essence, Mercury's transit triggers curiosity regarding matters related to the sign and house it traverses, prompting information gathering and sharing, aligning with Mercury's fundamental nature to communicate and exchange knowledge. To assess the impact of this transit, it's crucial to consider your ascendant and moon signs. The ascendant sign provides insights into the timing of life events, while the moon sign reveals how you'll emotionally respond to these changes. Consider the position of your current Maha-Dasha lord in your birth chart, as it can shed light on how these transits will influence the recurring themes of your current Dasha period. A more precise understanding of the impact of this transit can be gained by examining Mercury's Ashtaka score in Scorpio and Libra. Keep in mind that the effects of this transit will differ from person to person, contingent on Mercury's interaction with the planets in their individual birth charts, or its transit through the Zodiac. It's also worth noting that individuals currently experiencing the influence of Mercury Dasha may feel the effects of this transit more intensely. It's important to remember that the effects of this transit will vary for each person. To understand how this transit may affect you based on your zodiac sign and the houses it transits, let's delve into those specifics. For Aries, Mercury rules the 3rd and 6th houses, making this retrograde cycle highly significant for matters like communication, courage, daily work, competition, effort, siblings, skills, health, and debts. As Mercury travels through your 8th house in Scorpio and then reverses into your 7th house in Libra, life will feel like a journey through deep internal corridors, followed by a rebalancing in relationships and public dealings. This is not a surface-level transit. It is one that peels back layers, tests the truth in what you say and hear, and pushes you to confront the realities of shared commitments and unseen dynamics. Because it is the 8th and 7th houses in the zodiac wheel, this Mercury retrograde can stimulate profound change in partnerships, business alliances, hidden fears, and emotional patterns. The 8th house retrograde begins the cycle with introspection, secrets, revelations, and psychological transformation. The return to the 7th house later helps you renegotiate equations and partnerships after discovering deeper truths. As Mercury moves backward in Scorpio, the 8th house, the mind is drawn to what is concealed beneath everyday interactions. You may become intensely analytical, curious about motivations, and attuned to power dynamics. This retrograde can dig deeply into issues around shared finances, taxes, insurance, legal agreements, and inheritance. If any confusion or unfinished procedures exist in these areas, you may now be compelled to revisit them, not by choice, but by the pressure of circumstances. It is also possible to feel mentally restless or emotionally raw as buried matters rise to the surface. Scorpio has a way of uncovering secrets, so hidden agendas, private resentments, or unspoken expectations in a marriage or business partnership may suddenly come to light. As Aries is a direct sign, this can feel uncomfortable because you may prefer problems to be clear and solutions immediate, but the 8th house pace is slow, investigative, and psychological. Try not to rush through realizations. This period is meant to teach patience with the emotional layers of others and your own vulnerabilities. Mars, your sign lord, will be traveling through Scorpio during this retrograde, sitting alongside Mercury. Mars gives fuel and intensity to whatever it touches, and in this case, it energizes the mind with force, curiosity, and sometimes agitation. Communication may become sharp, probing, or reactive, especially when painful truths or betrayals surface. There may be days when anger and language come together quickly, pushing you to speak before thinking. Recognize that this is Scorpio's passionate fire combined with Mercury's analytical drive. It is helpful to channel this energy into research, problem-solving, financial planning, or deep emotional healing rather than confrontation or impulsive decisions. With Mars strengthening the 8th house themes, you may also develop sudden interest in occult subjects, astrology, psychology, investigative research, or metaphysical healing methods. You may feel a pull to understand life's mysteries or engage in spiritual study. Secret desires, suppressed fears, and subconscious motivations can become clear, not always softly, but powerfully. From November 16th, the Sun enters Scorpio, joining Mercury and Mars and intensifying the 8th house cluster. This brings illumination but also ego sensitivity, family disputes, and power struggles, especially over financial matters or emotional control. The Sun adds heat and visibility. Issues hidden earlier might now be openly addressed. Father-related matters, authority figures, or organizational politics may also play a role in shifting dynamics. Expect a phase where you feel the need to reclaim autonomy, break emotional dependence, or assert your personal boundaries. Yet, the wise path during this transit is not aggression, but inner clarity. Let revelations unfold without rushing to conclusions. Retrogrades reward introspection first, action later. Jupiter plays a protective yet introspective role here. Transiting exalted in Cancer and casting its 5th aspect to Scorpio, Jupiter provides guidance, wisdom, faith, and emotional maturity to navigate this deep water. Jupiter will also be retrograde during this time, meaning its blessings come through reflection, revising beliefs, and spiritual insights rather than external expansion. This influence can soften the psychological pressure of Mercury, Mars, Sun, helping you understand the deeper purpose behind events. You may revisit family emotional roots, ancestral patterns, childhood conditioning, and relational behaviors inherited unconsciously. With Saturn also retrograde in Pisces simultaneously, 3 planets move inward: Mercury in mind, Jupiter in wisdom, and Saturn in discipline. For Aries, who prefers forward motion, this retrograde trio will feel like brakes applied to identity expression and direction. Yet it is precisely this pause that restores your inner power. Work with it, not against it. On November 23rd, Mercury slips back into Libra, your 7th house, shifting the retrograde's lessons from inner transformation to external relating. Here, Mercury asks you to reevaluate relationships, marriage dynamics, business alliances, client agreements, and public image. Conversations around fairness, expectations, responsibilities, and emotional balance come to surface. But there is nuance. 3 days after this shift, Venus leaves Libra to enter Scorpio. So while Mercury tries to bring peace and harmony, Venus withdraws her full support from the partnership area and moves into the intense 8th house. This timing may create one moment where communication seeks balance but emotional waters feel stirred, or where agreements are revisited while feelings still process past hurts. Partnerships may go through negotiation and recalibration. If a bond is built on honesty and mutual respect, this period strengthens it by addressing imbalances. If relationships rely on avoidance or superficial courtesy, cracks may become hard to ignore. For a single Aries, someone from the past may reappear, or an unfinished emotional connection might surface for closure or reconsideration. For married or partnered Aries, this phase is ideal for transparent communication, even if uncomfortable topics arise. For business partnerships, contract reviews, role clarifications, restructuring agreements, or rethinking collaborations are expected. With Mercury retrograde in the 7th house, the universe asks you to renegotiate terms rather than abandon commitments impulsively. As Mercury returns to Scorpio in early December, the cycle completes. The truths uncovered earlier, the relational adjustments made during the Libra passage, and the wisdom gained through introspection now converge. This retrograde for Aries is about confronting shadows, healing relationship patterns, refining speech, and aligning partnerships with inner truth. You exit this period mentally sharper, emotionally stronger, and more aware of your motivations in both intimacy and alliances. It is a journey that demands courage, but Aries has that in abundance, and what you gain here will serve you in every territory you conquer next. For Taurus, Mercury governs the second and fifth houses, two powerful pillars of life. The second house rules speech, financial assets, family values, accumulated wealth, food habits, and moral grounding. The fifth house governs intelligence, planning ability, children, education, romance, creative expression, speculative investments, and spiritual merit from past lives. When Mercury retrogrades through the seventh house of Scorpio and then retraces into the sixth house of Libra, these themes interweave with partnership dynamics, legal matters, daily responsibilities, competition, and health. This period invites Taurus individuals to evaluate the foundations of how they communicate in relationships, handle money and responsibilities with others, and deal with emotional and practical realities in personal and professional partnerships. Because Taurus is a fixed earth sign, change can feel disruptive, but the universe is turning the soil so new growth can emerge. The retrograde begins in the seventh house in Scorpio, a house intimately linked to marriage, business alliances, professional agreements, and public interactions. Mercury here turns your mental focus toward the deeper truth of your partnerships. What lies beneath polite exchanges becomes impossible to ignore. Scorpio energy doesn't tolerate superficial harmony, and Mercury in retrograde amplifies the need to question loyalties, sincerity, shared goals, and mutual responsibilities. This isn't necessarily about mistrust, rather, it's about piercing through facades and ensuring that your partnerships are rooted in honesty, reciprocity, and transparency. If there have been unspoken tensions or avoidance around difficult conversations, they rise to the surface now. For Taurus individuals, who prefer stability and peace, the emotional intensity of Scorpio coupled with retrograde evaluation can feel like being asked to probe into areas they usually avoid for comfort's sake. Yet this is a necessary examination of where relationships stand and whether they nourish or drain you. Mars, the ruler of Scorpio, will already be in this house, joining Mercury and adding fuel to the retrograde experience. Mars animates impulses, personal defenses, and assertiveness. When Mercury sits next to Mars, communication gains force and directness, sometimes more than intended. This can lead to heated discussions or confrontational exchanges with partners if emotions are not managed. It is wise to pause before reacting and allow thoughtful communication to guide situations. Mars pushes for immediate resolution, but retrograde Mercury advises reflection before response. Channeling this intensity into productive research, strategy, and clarifying mutual expectations can turn a potentially volatile period into a powerful period of strengthening partnerships. On November 16th, the Sun enters Scorpio and joins Mercury and Mars in the seventh house. This forms a fiery, ego-charged cluster that highlights authority, pride, recognition, and personal identity within relationships. For some Taurus people, this may spotlight who holds power in a partnership, who makes decisions, and whether there is equality in emotional investment and responsibilities. The Sun's presence illuminates truths and often exposes hidden relationship themes that were easy to overlook earlier. There may be moments where one feels misunderstood or undervalued in partnership, prompting discussions to restore balance. The Sun also represents father figures, mentors, and authority, so professional partnerships or dealings with superiors may also go through renegotiation or clarification. Meanwhile, Jupiter in exalted Cancer aspects Scorpio with its fifth aspect, offering wisdom, emotional maturity, and grace in navigating these intense waters. Jupiter being retrograde at the same time brings introspection mixed with support. Answers come from looking backward, understanding emotional patterns, and taking guidance from memory and intuition. Jupiter's influence ensures that even when discussions feel difficult, the ultimate goal is harmony, understanding, and growth. Saturn retrograde in Pisces further deepens internal discipline and reminds you to act from responsibility rather than emotional reactivity. With Mercury, Jupiter, and Saturn retrograde simultaneously, the energy is not about rushing forward but about auditing relationship structures, communication styles, and shared goals while reflecting on past decisions. By November 23rd, Mercury slips backward into Libra, entering the sixth house. This shift transitions the focus from emotional partnership evaluation to practical problem solving, duty, conflict resolution, and health routines. The sixth house governs service, competition, litigation, debts, routine work, and wellness. Mercury here demands revisiting workplace communication, client matters, daily schedules, fitness routines, and approaches toward stress. If workplace misunderstandings, billing issues, or client miscommunications occurred earlier, they may reappear now for correction. For some, past conflicts or health concerns may resurface, not to disturb but to ensure they are finally resolved. Since Mercury rules your 2nd and 5th houses, during its stay in Libra you may also revisit decisions around investments, education, or creative projects, perhaps restructuring time and budgeting to better serve long-term goals. The timing carries an emotional nuance. Just 3 days after Mercury re-enters Libra, Venus leaves Libra and moves into Scorpio. For Taurus, Venus is the 1st house lord, and her exit from Libra, a natural domain of balance and cooperation, into the intensity of Scorpio suggests that while your schedule and communication styles shift toward rational, practical analysis, your emotional world remains entangled in partnership matters that still require patience and delicate handling. This tug between inner transformation and outer responsibilities may feel tiring, but it also strengthens emotional resilience. It shows you how to prioritize commitments without losing emotional grounding. Financial themes may also arise during this time because Mercury governs your 2nd house of wealth. Shared financial responsibilities with a spouse or business partner might need revisiting. Long-term investment plans, risk appetite, market decisions, and spending habits may undergo review. Avoid impulsive financial moves. Retrograde periods favor reassessment over new commitments. If you are involved in legal or business partnerships, reviewing contracts, consulting advisors, and delaying final decisions until Mercury turns direct can offer clarity and better outcomes. For students or those working on intellectual projects, this transit brings an opportunity to refine skills, edit ideas, and clarify academic or creative directions. Romantic relationships may also undergo reflection. Misunderstandings can be resolved if approached with patience, but emotional control is key. Parent-child communication may require more sensitivity as well. As Mercury moves back into Scorpio in December after turning direct, whatever concerns surface will reach resolution or clarity. This retrograde period is ultimately about refining how you relate, communicate, negotiate, and maintain balance in both emotional and practical affairs. For Taurus individuals, stability often feels like safety, but this cycle teaches that stability built on truth, clarity, and mutual effort is far more enduring than comfort built on silence or avoidance. Emerging from this retrograde, you stand to gain a more mature approach to partnership dynamics, stronger communication skills, healthier routines, and a clearer financial or creative direction. For Gemini, Mercury is the most influential planet because it rules both your 1st house of self, personality, intelligence, speech, thinking patterns, and health, as well as your 4th house of emotional peace, mother, home life, real estate, and inner stability. When Mercury retrogrades in the 6th house in Scorpio and then slips back into the 5th house in Libra, this period becomes deeply connected with your mental functioning, emotional equilibrium, health routines, work performance, studies, children, and personal discipline. This retrograde demands that you slow down, return to core priorities, and reorganize both internal beliefs and external commitments. It is a cycle that reshapes how you handle stress, manage daily responsibilities, deal with conflicts, and respond to emotional triggers. The retrograde begins in your 6th house in Scorpio, a domain linked to work, health, enemies, rivals, debts, disputes, competition, service, and daily routines. A retrograde here often acts as a deep diagnostic tool. It exposes inefficiencies and weaknesses in your workplace habits, health routines, time management, and emotional reactions to pressure. You may suddenly see clearly where stress has been accumulating and how ignored tasks or imbalanced habits are catching up. For a Gemini, whose mind naturally multitasks, this phase might feel like being forced to concentrate and reorganize priorities one at a time. A scattered approach will not work. Mercury in Scorpio demands focus, depth, and emotional maturity. This is a period to reevaluate your work strategies, reorganize your schedule, and refine skills that strengthen your performance. Mercury in Scorpio highlights the psychological side of health. Stress, anxiety, overthinking, and emotional pressure may manifest physically if not handled with awareness. Routine becomes a medicine. Creating a consistent structure, sleep discipline, exercise, diet improvements, digital boundaries, becomes more important than ever. Scorpio energy activates your subconscious, pushing unresolved worries to the surface. Instead of suppressing concerns, this is your moment to analyze them honestly, identify root patterns, and take action. Medical tests, health advice, or past treatment plans might reappear for review. Some Gemini individuals may also revisit legal matters, contracts, workplace conflicts, or unresolved paperwork, these may now move toward clarity. With Mars already in Scorpio, joining Mercury, the 6th house becomes energized. Mars fuels competitive instincts, and you may feel sharper, more assertive, and determined to push ahead. But this also increases irritability and impatience, especially if you face criticism or delays. Mercury, Mars energy sharpens intellect but can sharpen the tongue too. Arguments with coworkers, subordinates, or authority figures can erupt if caution is ignored. Instead of reacting impulsively, channel this fire into problem-solving, strategy, and exercise. Debates can be productive when done calmly. Battles can be won when energy is focused rather than scattered. Avoid trying to do everything at once. Choose your priorities and execute them one by one. On November 16th, the Sun joins Mercury and Mars in Scorpio, further intensifying your inner world. The Sun brings illumination, clarity, and sometimes ego friction. Workplace power dynamics, authority issues, and competition can become more visible. If you have been tolerating unfair treatment or carrying hidden frustration, this time forces you to decide whether to confront issues or restructure your path. The Sun also brings vitality, but in Scorpio, it demands that you transform, not just react. If you have been holding resentment or internal tension, now is the time to release it constructively. This transit can be a breakthrough in personal discipline and emotional self-mastery if handled consciously. Jupiter casts its exalted aspect from Cancer onto Scorpio, offering wisdom and emotional protection during this period. Yet Jupiter is also retrograde, so its guidance comes inwards. Through intuition, reflection, and returning to foundational truths, emotional intelligence becomes your greatest ally. The support from Jupiter suggests that even tense or competitive moments carry a hidden blessing. They are pushing you toward maturity and self-respect. Saturn, retrograde in Pisces at the same time, tests your long-term goals and career direction. The triple retrograde energy means the universe is slowing you down to build stronger systems rather than chase quick victories. This period rewards patience, focus, humility in learning, and willingness to adjust your long-term plans. On November 23rd, Mercury retrogrades into Libra, shifting energy from duty and discipline into heart space and creativity, your 5th house. Here the focus becomes emotions, love, self-expression, studies, creative work, hobbies, children, and romantic thoughts. This is the emotional review phase after practical correction. Mercury returns to evaluate your emotional expectations, communication in love, and creative confidence. If you are studying or working on a creative project, you may revisit earlier parts, rewrite concepts, or feel drawn back to something you once loved doing. This is a beautiful time to rediscover forgotten creativity, painting, writing, music, content creation, spiritual practices, or hobbies you paused. Students may need to restudy or revise, and parents may revisit conversations around their children's needs or studies. Romantic themes surface too. Old conversations may return. Past lovers might pop up mentally or literally. Unresolved emotional feelings surface for closure or clarity. This is not a signal to restart old stories, but to understand them honestly. This retrograde matures your emotional intelligence. 3 days after Mercury enters Libra, Venus leaves Libra and enters Scorpio, shifting emotional warmth into practical discipline again. While your mind is reevaluating romance and creativity, Venus encourages emotional cleansing in health and routine sectors. You may find yourself emotionally detached from drama and more emotionally attracted to peace, stability, and self-care. Venus in Scorpio deepens emotions but also sharpens intuition. You understand emotional motives behind others' behaviors more clearly. You see truth behind words. You identify where emotional energy was wasted and where it needs protection. Through all this, remember Mercury is your ruling planet, meaning this retrograde is not simply external delay, it is inner transformation. You are being rewritten, your habits, your emotional patterns, your priorities, and your relationship with self-discipline and creativity. This is a time to step back, analyze life with compassion, and not force progress. Your success grows quietly through reflection, routine repair, and emotional maturity. You may notice you speak less, listen more, and think before reacting. This is evolution. When Mercury turns direct and returns to Scorpio in early December, you re-enter life sharper, stronger, clearer, more emotionally grounded. You walk away with improved discipline, healthier routines, more creative clarity, and stronger mental focus. You learn the art of pacing yourself, nurturing your nervous system, and balancing heart and duty. Nothing is being taken from you during this period. Everything is being refined. Allow this retrograde to rewire your life rhythm, strengthen your emotional intelligence, and purify your mental energy. For Cancer, Mercury governs your 3rd and 12th houses, two very subtle and psychologically rich domains. The 3rd house reflects communication style, courage, skills, writing ability, siblings, marketing, self-efforts, and decisions you take by your own will. The 12th house governs subconscious patterns, spiritual retreats, foreign lands, sleep, expenses, isolation, imagination, and emotional release. When Mercury retrogrades through your 5th house in Scorpio and then moves back into your 4th house in Libra, your inner world becomes the main field of activity. You are entering a cycle where the universe asks you to reassess your emotional needs, your creative urges, your connection with children or romantic interests, and your mental peace. The 5th house brings introspection about self-expression and creativity, while the 4th house asks for emotional grounding, home-related clarity, and a reconnection to your roots. This retrograde is like a deep cleansing process. It asks you to look inward, restructure your emotional life, and reclaim lost confidence in your creative and personal voice. The journey begins in Scorpio, your 5th house. This is a place of creativity, romance, intelligence, joy, education, children, passions, and speculative ventures. When Mercury retrogrades here, all these themes come under review. Thoughts become private and introspective, and emotional memories can resurface. Scorpio energy digs beneath the surface, stirring old feelings, the kind you thought you had already processed. You may find yourself reevaluating how you share affection, how you parent or advise younger ones, how you express creativity, or how you deal with romantic expectations. The 5th house retrograde often brings past romantic interests into emotional awareness, sometimes physically, sometimes mentally. This is not necessarily about restarting an old chapter, but rather gaining closure or understanding lessons from it. Your heart and mind may feel at odds at moments. Desires can awaken, but the retrograde demands patience before acting. Mercury, being the lord of the 12th house, heightens unconscious processing. Dreams can become vivid, intuition sharp, and suppressed emotions may bubble up. Cancer is a water sign ruled by the moon, meaning emotions naturally fluctuate. This Mercury retrograde amplifies emotional thinking, requiring you to observe yourself as much as you observe others. Old creative projects may call you back. Ideas you left behind may feel alive again. You may rediscover forgotten hobbies or interests, music, art, writing, sports, spiritual study. Your inner child wants attention, not neglect. This is a time to rekindle creativity rather than pressure yourself to perform. Yet this retrograde is not soft. Mars occupies Scorpio alongside Mercury, injecting passion into thoughts and intensity into emotions. Mars adds ambition, but also potential friction. You may feel competitive, restless, or obsessively attached to certain ideas or outcomes. With Mars, there is a risk of impulsive statements or heated romantic exchanges. Be mindful that Scorpio energy sharpens instincts but also suspicion. Jealousy, protectiveness, and emotional vulnerability may arise if you feel ignored or misunderstood. Mars helps you act, but Mercury reminds you to think first. Turning this energy toward creative discipline, study, writing, or spiritual practice can be transformative. On November 16th, the Sun joins this Mercury-Mars combination in Scorpio, igniting intense emotional awareness. The Sun in the 5th house illuminates desires, ego and love, pride and creativity, and your role as a guide or mentor. But combined with retrograde Mercury and Mars, the Sun can expose insecurities or inflate ego reactions. Parenting conversations may intensify. Teaching, learning, exam preparation, investment decisions, or risk-taking behaviors all require cautious thinking. It is not a time to gamble emotionally or financially. Instead, analyze your motivations. The Sun's light reveals what has been hiding in your heart, whether passion or fear. This combination can also produce breakthroughs in creative thinking if emotional energy is channeled consciously. Jupiter's exalted aspect from Cancer to Scorpio acts like a divine hand holding your shoulder. Though Jupiter is retrograde, its wisdom works inward, strengthening faith and emotional resilience. Jupiter brings perspective, reminding you that emotional waves carry messages, not threats. When your mood swings or insecurities surface, Jupiter encourages compassion toward yourself and others. Saturn retrograde in Pisces, at the same time, pushes you to refine long-term vision, spiritual values, and educational goals. With 3 major planets retrograde, this is a time to review plans, reconnect with faith, and release outdated emotional patterns. On November 23rd, Mercury moves back into Libra, your 4th house of home, emotional comfort, mother, property, and inner peace. Your attention shifts from creative self-expression to emotional security and domestic harmony. Relationship dynamics with family members, especially mother figures, come into focus. Conversations that were postponed may now resurface for healing. This phase can bring a desire to reorganize your home, reconnect with domestic responsibilities, or reevaluate property-related decisions. A desire for comfort, aesthetics, and emotional warmth emerges, yet retrograde motion keeps you evaluating before acting. 3 days after this shift, Venus, ruler of Libra, leaves the 4th house and steps into Scorpio. Emotional safety now links with emotional depth. This can stir intense feelings at home and in your heart. Quietly, you may feel more sentimental, nostalgic, or protective of emotional boundaries. Cancer individuals often internalize emotional experience, and with Mercury in retrograde reviewing 4th house matters while Venus moves into Scorpio, you will be balancing tenderness and introspection. Do not ignore emotional fatigue. Rest, grounding activities, home-cooked meals, meditation, or journaling can help restore peace. Financial decisions involving children, creative ventures, education, or home matters may require reconsideration. Investment plans, savings strategies, or loan matters should be handled slowly, especially if emotional motivations cloud clarity. For students, this period brings a review of study habits, exam strategies, and academic direction. Creativity blossoms when fed by solitude and inner reflection. Romantic bonds deepen or undergo correction. Communication becomes honest and emotional truth becomes critical. Parenting moments can teach you patience and empathy. Your inner child and your actual children require gentleness. As Mercury returns to Scorpio in December after turning direct, clarity returns. You will understand why certain emotional patterns surfaced and how they shaped your responses. What initially felt heavy becomes meaningful. This retrograde ultimately strengthens your emotional intelligence, intuitive strength, creative vision, and inner peace. You emerge calmer, wiser, better aligned with your heart's truth, and more emotionally centered in how you love, create, and nurture yourself and others. For Leo, Mercury governs the 11th house of gains, network circles, friends, elder siblings, ambitions, and recognition, as well as the 2nd house of wealth, speech, family values, stored resources, food habits, and self-worth. When Mercury turns retrograde in your 4th house in Scorpio and then moves back to your 3rd house in Libra, key themes revolve around emotional foundations, home life, communication style, family relationships, emotional security, courage, self-effort, skills, and financial planning. This retrograde highlights your inner world first, then your outer expression. It is a time to examine where you emotionally belong, how you nurtured your peace, and how your decisions and speech affect your relationships and goals. As a Leo, ruled by the Sun, you naturally radiate leadership and presence. But this retrograde asks you not to rule from ego, but to lead from emotional sensitivity and grounded clarity. The retrograde begins in Scorpio, your 4th house. The 4th house governs homeland, mother energy, heart space, property, vehicles, inner happiness, emotional roots, and private life. Mercury here triggers a deep introspective process. You may find yourself thinking more about your home environment, childhood memories, and family responsibilities. Scorpio adds emotional mystery to your mental space, making thoughts more private, intense, and investigative. You may begin scrutinizing your emotional needs, evaluating whether your home and relationships give you true peace, and questioning how your upbringing shaped your reactions. If there have been unfinished property matters, family discussions, or emotional wounds related to mother figures, this period brings them forward for healing. For Leo individuals, who tend to maintain a strong exterior, this transit melts the surface confidence and brings genuine emotional truths to the forefront. It invites vulnerability, and vulnerability becomes strength. Mercury ruling your 11th and 2nd houses means finances and network circles also link with domestic stability and emotional environment now. Unexpected expenses at home, rethinking investment in property, or revisiting shared financial responsibilities can show up. You may reconnect with old friends or family members you haven't spoken to in a while. Family conversations may need clarity, patience, and mature communication. Old emotional habits may become visible, especially ones where pride stopped you from expressing softer needs. This is the heart learning to speak honestly. Mars is already in Scorpio, intensifying this experience. Mars energizes Scorpio and pushes you to take action about home matters, renovations, emotional patterns, or unresolved family dynamics. But Mars with Mercury can also make communication heated. You may feel reactive or defensive if emotional buttons are pressed. It becomes essential to watch your tone. Sharp words spoken in emotional moments can leave marks. Use Mars constructively by channeling energy into home organization, dealing with repairs, clearing emotional clutter, or taking up grounding activities. Intuition sharpens, but so does emotional sensitivity. Instead of reacting, observe. Then the Sun enters Scorpio on November 16th, joining Mercury and Mars in your 4th house. This creates a powerful emotional intensity. The Sun is your chart ruler, and when it enters Scorpio, your inner identity merges with emotional depth. You may crave privacy, emotional warmth, and comfort. Moments of introspection amplify. Ego can feel sensitive during this time. Old insecurities may surface, especially around family acceptance, emotional validation, or home security. But this is a sacred cleansing. What rises is what needs release. The Sun illuminates everything hidden in the heart, allowing purification. Jupiter from Cancer aspects Scorpio in exaltation, offering spiritual guidance and emotional wisdom during this time. Even as you dive into emotional depths, Jupiter protects your inner light. It encourages forgiveness, empathy, and faith. Jupiter is retrograde too, which means its guidance comes through intuition, meditation, reflection, and revisiting spiritual or emotional teachings. Saturn retrograde in Pisces further deepens the internal restructuring. Old karmic emotional patterns dissolve to make space for maturity. With 3 planets retrograde, life slows down so you can realign your emotional foundation with your future path. Don't fight the stillness. It is preparing you for momentum later. On November 23rd, Mercury moves back into Libra, your 3rd house. The focus shifts from emotional examination to communication, siblings, daily decisions, writing, media activity, creativity, and skill development. If conversations with siblings or neighbors were pending, they may resurface. Communication becomes more diplomatic here, yet introspective energy lingers. The 3rd house also governs courage and initiative. You may reevaluate a personal goal, creative idea, or business plan before moving forward. Writing projects, marketing strategies, or media work may need revision. If you've been planning to learn something new or restart a skill, this time reignites the desire but advises patience and structured effort. 3 days after Mercury enters Libra, Venus leaves Libra and moves into Scorpio. As Venus exits your communication house just as Mercury retrogrades into it, speech becomes thoughtful rather than charming, serious instead of casual. You may choose silence over socializing, listening over talking. With Ketu currently in Leo, your identity itself is in a phase of karmic purification and detachment. You may have moments of stepping back from public visibility and social expectations, choosing instead to focus on internal clarity and purposeful effort. This is not withdrawal, it is sacred recentering. Relationships with friends and networks may require revision. With Mercury ruling your 11th house, old acquaintances may reconnect, or you may evaluate who truly supports your growth. Financial planning may require recalibration, avoid impulsive investments or spending. Speech affects wealth during this time. How you communicate can support or obstruct opportunities. Maintain calm, thoughtful dialogue with partners, colleagues, and family. Creatively, this transit can be powerful. Emotional intensity fuels imagination. Artists, writers, musicians, and spiritual seekers may find breakthroughs. But creativity blossoms in silence and stillness now, not chaos. Emotional nourishment becomes essential. Meditation, journaling, or spending time at home replenishes you. Decluttering your emotional space clears your professional path later. One key theme for Leo during this retrograde: pride dissolves into presence. You are being guided to soften into truth, not armor. This transit strengthens you by making you aware of where emotional sensitivity and inner security were ignored in the pursuit of external achievements or recognition. Your voice becomes deeper, wiser, and more authentic through introspection. Your ambitions recalibrate with your emotional truth, not against it. When Mercury returns to Scorpio again after turning direct, this emotional cleansing prepares you for a new chapter in family foundations, wealth building, and meaningful connections. You emerge more centered, emotionally wise, humble yet confident, and ready to make decisions with both heart and clarity. For Virgo, Mercury is your chart ruler and also governs the 10th house of career, authority, professional reputation, public life, and long-term responsibilities. This makes every Mercury retrograde especially powerful for you, because the planet responsible for your identity, thinking patterns, daily functioning, decisions, and career direction temporarily shifts into a review mode. As Mercury retrogrades in your 3rd house in Scorpio and then moves back into your 2nd house in Libra, life turns toward re-evaluating your skills, communication style, financial decisions, priorities, personal goals, and your relationship with effort and discipline. This is not simply a pause, it is a strategic recalibration period, where the universe fine-tunes your voice, your self-expression, and the direction in which your ambitions are evolving. The retrograde begins in Scorpio, your 3rd house, the domain of courage, initiative, writing, communication, networking, business ideas, self-efforts, siblings, travel, and skill development. Mercury here becomes deep-thinking, strategic, and observant. For a Virgo, whose mind already analyzes and processes details constantly, this transit adds a psychological layer. You start questioning the intent behind your actions, the emotional motivation behind your ambitions, and the strength of your decision-making processes. You may revisit an old idea, business plan, writing project, or communication approach that was left unfinished. Thoughts become investigative. Your desire to understand underlying truths, whether in relationships, deals, or personal decisions, grows stronger. The 3rd house retrograde always brings back something you once started, a creative idea, a marketing strategy, a learning project, or a self-improvement plan, but this time, you approach it with maturity and deeper understanding. Scorpio energy makes your mind sharper but also more intense. Conversations may take on more emotional depth. You may speak less but listen more, and you may quietly evaluate the motives of others. Because the 3rd house represents willpower and self-confidence, this retrograde may challenge your certainty at times, then re-strengthen you through introspection. It is not unusual to rethink social media plans, marketing strategies, or communication boundaries during this phase. If you are a content creator, advisor, writer, or someone who depends heavily on communication, you may go inward, refine your message, and rework your creative direction. Sibling interactions or neighborhood matters may also resurface. Old conversations, unresolved dynamics, or family plans could need attention. Mars transits the 3rd house alongside Mercury during this time, amplifying initiative, ambition, and assertiveness, but also impatience. Mars in the 3rd house gives courage and competitive fire, yet when combined with retrograde Mercury, the challenge is to prevent impulsive speech or argumentative reactions. You may feel driven to prove yourself, defend your ideas, or confront something you've been quietly tolerating. Discipline is essential. Mars gives momentum, but retrograde Mercury asks for thoughtful execution. If you can combine both, this becomes a powerful period for building skills, developing a business plan, or strengthening communication strategies. If you rush, misunderstandings or unnecessary conflicts may arise. On November 16th, the Sun enters Scorpio and joins Mercury and Mars, forming a heated mental environment. The Sun activates ego, recognition, and personal authority. When it illuminates the 3rd house with Mercury retrograde, self-evaluation reaches a peak. You begin clearly seeing how your own thinking, habits, and attitudes shape your results. This transit pushes you to refine not just goals, but the personal discipline required to reach them. The Sun also energizes learning. You may feel a strong urge to study something again, polish your skills, or return to knowledge you once set aside. Yet, ego-fueled communication can occur if you don't balance confidence with humility. Virgo is a sign of refinement, and this period polishes your mental and verbal strength through introspection. Jupiter in exalted Cancer aspects Scorpio with its 5th aspect, blessing this transit with wisdom and emotional maturity. Although Jupiter is retrograde, its guidance works inwardly, meaning you gain insights through reflection rather than external advice. You may uncover a limiting belief, realize how your mindset influences success, or feel inspired to pursue a higher purpose in your professional or intellectual life. Saturn retrograde in Pisces works simultaneously in your 7th house, reviewing commitments, partnerships, and long-term relationship patterns. Together, Jupiter, Saturn, and Mercury retrograde form a tri-layer introspection phase. Your mind, duties, and hopes are being reorganized for long-term improvement. This is a realignment rather than a setback. On November 23rd, Mercury enters Libra again, taking you from the third house of self-effort back into the second house of finances, speech, family values, and material security. This shift changes the tone from strategic planning and communication refinement to economic review, income reconsideration, budgeting adjustments, and recalibration of investments and resources. Old financial decisions may come up for review: savings plans, debt settlement, long-term financial goals, or business expenses might need restructuring. Speech becomes sensitive. How you speak to family, colleagues, clients, and partners matters greatly during this period. The second house governs voice. Retrograde Mercury here can help you correct communication patterns that unintentionally created misunderstandings or emotional distance. 3 days after this transition, Venus leaves Libra, her own sign, and moves into Scorpio. The timing is symbolic. Emotional comfort in communication shifts into emotional intensity in effort. As Venus exits your financial house while Mercury retrogrades there, you may temporarily feel cautious regarding financial moves, relationship conversations, and decisions regarding security. Yet this also anchors you toward realistic financial planning rather than emotional spending or hurried investments. The universe wants you to evaluate value, not just in money, but in people, habits, skills, and goals. This phase can bring emotional clarity regarding family patterns, childhood conditioning around resources, and self-worth. Mercury being your first house lord means your identity itself is undergoing recalibration. You are learning to express more wisely, to choose efforts that align with purpose, and to build stability with awareness rather than anxiety. Some Virgo individuals may revisit career decisions, particularly if communication, writing, consulting, or media work is involved. If you run a business, you may revise branding, messaging, or client strategies. If employed, you may rethink professional boundaries, efficiency habits, or career goals. Although this period brings introspection, it is not a withdrawal. It is a preparation cycle, harmonizing mind, voice, finances, and ambition. When Mercury turns direct and re-enters Scorpio in December, your decisions and communication gain clarity and strength. You emerge sharper, more composed, and more aligned with your vision. The Virgo essence thrives through refinement. This retrograde polishes you, strengthens consistency, and realigns your ambitions with a grounded, powerful sense of self-worth. What returns during this period returns to be resolved, enhanced, or completed. For Libra, Mercury rules your 9th house of fortune, higher wisdom, dharma, teachers, long-distance travel, luck, and philosophy, and your 12th house of subconscious mind, foreign lands, isolation, hidden fears, spiritual liberation, and expenditures. When Mercury retrogrades in your 2nd house of Scorpio and later moves back into your 1st house of Libra, this becomes a deeply introspective cycle affecting your speech, identity, values, self-expression, family connections, finances, and spiritual alignment. This period is a slow refinement of how you think, what you speak, the truths you hold, and the path you choose to commit to. It pushes you to re-examine your personal ethics, balance practicality with intuition, and reconnect with the voice of your higher self. For Libra, a sign that seeks peace, balance, and grace, this transit dismantles surface equilibrium so you can rebuild an authentic foundation beneath it. The retrograde begins in Scorpio in your 2nd house, turning attention toward finances, food habits, speech, security, self-worth, and family legacy. Mercury here becomes intense, analytical, and private. Scorpio energy does not tolerate superficial emotional responses. It demands honesty and emotional courage. You may find yourself reconsidering financial decisions, investments, and savings strategies. Old financial obligations or unresolved family matters may come up for review. If there were emotional scars related to childhood security, financial dependence, or family expectations, they may resurface gently, not to disturb you, but to be dissolved consciously. You may feel the urge to rethink your earning strategies or reevaluate your relationship with money and security. Avoid major financial decisions until clarity returns after the retrograde ends. This phase is meant for planning, not execution. Mercury rules your 9th house, so belief systems and life philosophy also undergo a revision. You may question what you were taught, challenge inherited values, or reread spiritual or philosophical ideas that once guided you. Conversations with family can carry emotional depth, sometimes triggering old patterns, sometimes healing them. The 2nd house represents speech, and Mercury retrograde here urges you to speak with mindfulness. You may notice where your words come from pain rather than clarity, or where silence has created more distance than harmony. If misunderstandings arise, treat them as invitations to soften communication patterns. Mars sits in Scorpio alongside Mercury, intensifying emotional energy. The desire to protect your values or defend your opinions may increase, and in emotional moments, speech may become sharp or reactive. Mars pushes action. Mercury retrograde asks for reflection. Finding balance is key. Channel Mars into strategic financial planning, disciplined self-improvement, and private emotional healing work rather than arguments. Avoid impulsive spending or reacting defensively. Your internal strength grows when you choose conscious restraint over quick responses. On November 16th, the Sun enters Scorpio, joining Mercury and Mars in your second house. The Sun highlights self-worth, finances, and family pride. Its fire burns away illusions about your emotional dependency or financial boundaries. Ego can feel tested if your value isn't recognized immediately by others. This is a training period for self-validation rather than outside approval. The Sun illuminates where you have undervalued yourself or given away your energy to maintain harmony. Libra often avoids conflict to keep peace, but Scorpio invites you to face emotional truths courageously. This phase strengthens your inner foundation, so you choose peace consciously, not because you fear disruption. Jupiter, exalted in Cancer, casts its auspicious aspect onto your second house, offering protection and wisdom. Jupiter retrograde here helps you re-establish emotional intelligence and ethical grounding. Even during difficult conversations or financial reviews, Jupiter ensures growth and deeper understanding. Saturn, retrograde in Pisces, meanwhile, ensures that daily routines, health, and responsibilities also align with your evolving inner clarity. With Mercury, Jupiter, and Saturn retrograde together, life becomes reflective and karmically aligned. You are being guided to correct long-standing patterns rather than chase new ones. On November 23rd, Mercury retrogrades into your first house in Libra. This shift turns the spotlight inward. Your personality, physical presence, identity expression, confidence, and way of thinking all undergo evaluation. You may become more introspective or emotionally self-aware. Public expression becomes thoughtful and measured. You speak less to others and more to yourself. This is not withdrawal. It is conscious recentering. You may reassess life goals, personal boundaries, style of communication, and how you show up in relationships. People may notice you processing more from within than externally engaging. Old versions of yourself fall away, making room for a more aligned and self-assured identity. 3 days after Mercury re-enters Libra, Venus, your chart ruler, exits Libra for Scorpio. Symbolically, the heart leaves the area of balance and harmony just as the mind enters it for reassessment. Your emotional field shifts into deeper self-worth work, while your mental clarity returns to renegotiating relationships and personal identity. You may temporarily feel emotionally raw or nostalgic. Trust this transition. It helps you shed old emotional conditioning and reshape your self-image based on authentic values rather than pleasing others. Because Mercury rules your 12th house, emotional fatigue, dream activity, or desire for solitude may rise. Hidden thoughts come to the surface, but they arrive to be healed. Meditation, journaling, or spiritual study will help. For students, creative seekers, or those pursuing spiritual learning, this retrograde encourages reviewing teachings, restudying concepts, and deepening mental discipline. Travel plans may get delayed or revised. If involved in family business or inheritance matters, expect reevaluation or document review. You may reconnect with old friends, revisit spiritual practices, or revive personal goals. Identity adjustments feel subtle but profound. You are learning to see yourself beyond roles and expectations. You may notice how often you adjust your needs to keep harmony, and this retrograde helps you reclaim self-identity without abandoning diplomacy. Libra is symbolized by scales, and right now the scales recalibrate not external relationships first, but internal balance. When Mercury moves direct and re-enters Scorpio, clarity arrives around finances, self-worth, family values, and emotional security. You emerge stronger, more self-aware, and more grounded in your truth. This retrograde dismantles emotional dependencies and rebuilds internal trust. You learn to speak from truth, not fear, to act from self-esteem, not approval-seeking. This period matures your voice, stabilizes your inner foundation, and strengthens your connection to your deeper wisdom. For Scorpio, Mercury governs the 8th and 11th houses, two intense zones linked with deep transformation, hidden knowledge, longevity, shared resources, soulmate bonds, karmic circumstances, networks, elder siblings, gains, desires, and big life aspirations. When Mercury retrogrades first in your first house in Scorpio and then moves back into your 12th house in Libra, life becomes a powerful psychological cleanse. This period forces you to examine identity, subconscious patterns, emotional responses, hidden fears, financial strategies, social connections, and how you show up in relationships and the world. With Mars and Scorpio fueling this retrograde, the Sun joining the mix later, and Jupiter casting exalted support, you are stepping into a karmic purification phase that transforms you from the inside out. This is not a light transit, it is a rebirth cycle, aligning your psyche, your spiritual foundation, your ambitions, and your relationships with truth. The retrograde begins in your first house, the area of personality, physical self, mindset, personal desires, and the way you approach life. Mercury here turns your mind inward, slowing outer expression so inner clarity can grow. You may suddenly feel quieter, more introspective, or selective with your words. Scorpio energy naturally guards emotions and secrets, and Mercury retrograde intensifies this tendency. You may choose silence over unnecessary communication, depth over superficiality, and truth over politeness. This is a period of observing yourself, why you react the way you do, what emotional triggers arise, how you express your truth, and how you handle vulnerability. The world may feel like it is slowing down around you, but you are entering a phase of mental metamorphosis. Old perceptions break down so stronger self-awareness can rise. Because Mercury rules your 8th house, deep psychological content surfaces, suppressed emotions, past fears, unresolved trauma, intimacy issues, trust dynamics, and karmic bonds may enter your awareness. You may feel prompted to analyze shared finances, emotional debts, or investments with others. Unexpected thoughts, vivid dreams, or intuitive flashes guide you toward healing what's been buried. This retrograde asks you to step into emotional honesty with yourself first. If any aspect of your identity has been shaped by survival instinct or defensive armor, this period melts that armor so your real power, not your walls, leads your life. Scorpio has a habit of turning pain into strength, and this retrograde is a forge for that alchemy. Because Mercury also rules the 11th house, you may review friendships, social circles, professional networks, and long-term goals. If certain relationships feel transactional, or if alliances no longer align with your new growth, distance may occur. You are learning to value soul-level alignment over surface connection. Goals too are being reevaluated, not what you once wanted, but what your deeper self now seeks. Ambition becomes refined, your vision becomes more purposeful. You may see clearly who supports your growth and who drains your energy. The universe is pruning, not to isolate you, but to prepare ground for authentic connections ahead. Mars, your first house lord, is in Scorpio with Mercury, sharpening instincts and intensifying inner drive. You feel powerful internally, yet may struggle to express your thoughts calmly externally. Mars gives raw energy, courage, and emotional fire. Mercury retrograde demands patience, reflection, and strategic thought. When these energies combine, speak carefully and act deliberately. Impulsive reactions create unnecessary friction. Use this fiery introspection to break inner limitations, not burn bridges. Channel Mars into exercise, personal discipline, therapy, meditation, spiritual study, or creative transformation. This is a time to sharpen your emotional sword rather than swing it blindly. On November 16th, the Sun enters Scorpio, joining Mercury and Mars. Ego sensitivity rises, self-awareness heightens, and illumination spreads across your inner landscape. The Sun brings truth to the surface, truths about identity, relationships, insecurities, and secret desires. You may go through a phase of feeling misunderstood or emotionally exposed, but this clarity is meant to empower, not destabilize. Scorpio thrives in truth, embrace what emerges without judgment. Ego wounds heal when acknowledged, not suppressed. Throughout this period, exalted Jupiter from Cancer casts its 5th aspect onto Scorpio, offering protection, emotional wisdom, and spiritual guidance. Though Jupiter is retrograde too, which means the wisdom comes inwardly rather than externally, its presence ensures growth, not breakdown. It becomes your emotional anchor, your spiritual compass. You are not navigating this transformation alone. Jupiter gives divine insight, emotional intelligence, and intuitive maturity. Saturn retrograde in Pisces simultaneously works through your 5th house, encouraging emotional discipline, creative restructuring, and long-term clarity in matters of love, children, faith, and personal expression. With 3 major planets retrograde, the universe has paused your external life to complete internal karma and refine your spiritual intelligence. On November 23rd, Mercury retrogrades back into Libra, your 12th house, a zone of isolation, subconscious patterns, exile, retreat, foreign lands, healing, and spiritual depth. Thoughts deepen further, your inner world becomes a temple. You may feel the need to withdraw, rest, disconnect from noise, meditate, or spend time in quiet environments. Dreams, intuition, and psychic sensitivity heighten. Emotional healing from past relationships, karmic ties, or childhood memories surfaces. You may revisit spiritual practices or counseling. Solitude becomes nourishment, not loneliness. 3 days after Mercury shifts to Libra, Venus leaves Libra and enters Scorpio. Your emotional needs move with Venus into your identity space just as your mind retreats to introspection. This creates a dynamic period of internal emotional purification and subconscious understanding. You may feel deeply connected to your inner truth yet detached from external drama. If a chapter in your personal life or relationships needs closure, this time reveals it clearly. Financial matters involving foreign connections, spiritual expenses, or charity work may require reconsideration. Guard against emotional spending or escapism. Healing requires presence, not distraction. During this retrograde, avoid rushing decisions in marriage, business partnerships, finances, or long-term commitments. Instead, take notes, analyze, reflect, prepare. Clarity returns when Mercury goes direct and re-enters Scorpio in December. The self you meet before retrograde will not be the same self that emerges after. You are shedding layers of outdated identity, emotional armor, and karmic residue. Scorpio transformations are never superficial. They rebuild the psyche from the core. You exit the cycle sharper, wiser, and more emotionally sovereign. Your intuition strengthens, your identity purifies, your ambitions realign with soul truth, and you step forward with a fierce inner stability that no external shift can shake. This retrograde is a rebirth. Allow yourself to dissolve so you can rise in your true power. For Sagittarius, Mercury governs the 7th house of partnerships, marriage, business alliances, agreements, and public interactions, as well as the 10th house of career, authority, social standing, life path, and professional responsibilities. Its retrograde, therefore, has the power to reshape both your professional trajectory and your one-to-one relationships. When Mercury retrogrades in your 12th house in Scorpio, then moves backward into your 11th house in Libra, life turns inward first, releasing emotional weight, subconscious patterns, and karmic residues before shifting your attention toward friendships, networks, ambitions, and long-term plans. This cycle prepares you to refine your expectations, your alliances, your career strategy, and your relationship boundaries. For a fire sign who moves with instinct and optimism, this retrograde invites you to slow down, reflect, and realign your approach before leaping ahead. The retrograde begins in Scorpio, your 12th house, a mystical, private terrain linked to dreams, subconscious fears, emotional closure, spiritual release, solitude, foreign lands, hidden habits, past life karmas, and necessary endings. When Mercury steps back here, your mind goes beneath the surface. Thoughts wander into deeply personal territory. You may find yourself revisiting emotional experiences, dismantling illusions, sorting through hidden memories, or confronting inner vulnerabilities you usually avoid in daily life. The 12th house often dissolves worldly attachments so you can hear your spiritual voice clearly. That dissolution may come through solitude, quiet reflection, or even the temporary feeling of being misunderstood or detached from the world. Do not mistake this withdrawal for weakness. It is a recalibration of your mental and emotional energy. As Mercury rules your 10th house, career-related introspection becomes part of the process. You may rethink professional goals, question whether your current path reflects your deeper values, or reconsider partnerships or business commitments that no longer serve your truth. Because Mercury also rules your 7th house, this is a period when relationships, romantic and business, are viewed through a spiritual and karmic lens. Past connections may surface in memory or communication to offer closure or clarity. Expectations you placed on others may dissolve. Instead of demanding reciprocity, you may learn the lesson of internal completeness. Retrograde Mercury in the 12th house often brings powerful realizations about attachment, boundaries, and spiritual stamina. Sagittarius tends to see the world as a journey. Now, the inner world becomes the path. Mars joins Mercury in Scorpio in your 12th house, intensifying inner fire and restlessness. Dreams may become vivid. Strong emotions may emerge from the subconscious. You might feel pressure to act but unable to see the next step clearly. Mars pushes, Mercury pauses. Use this conflicting energy constructively, channel it into meditation, journaling, physical activity, or spiritual practice. This is not the time to confront others aggressively or make impulsive decisions in relationships or career. Instead, let Mars burn away hidden fears while Mercury uncovers the truth beneath them. There is power in this quiet transformation. On November 16th, the Sun enters Scorpio, joining Mercury and Mars. The Sun illuminates shadow corners of your psyche, revealing motives, insecurities, karmic lessons, and inner strength. The ego may feel fragile during this period, especially if you are used to staying active and positive. But ego softening is part of your spiritual evolution now. The Sun brings light to hidden places, giving you clarity about what needs to be released, whether emotional patterns, unhealthy expectations, self-doubt, or attachments to the past. Jupiter, your chart ruler, is exalted in Cancer during this time, casting its graceful fifth aspect onto Scorpio. Though retrograde, Jupiter's guidance becomes deeply intuitive, maternal, and protective. You may feel spiritually supported, emotionally guided, and drawn to introspective wisdom. This is the universe reminding you that even silence has a divine rhythm. Saturn retrograde in Pisces, in your 4th house, simultaneously restructures your emotional base, home life, and inner security. With Mercury, Jupiter, and Saturn retrograding together, this is not a time of outward acceleration, it is a time of inner mastery. Your intuition strengthens, your emotional core deepens. On November 23rd, Mercury moves back into Libra, your 11th house of gains, networks, friendships, long-term dreams, and social circles. The retrograde now shifts from inner cleansing to re-evaluating outer connection. You may revisit old friendships, reconnect with mentors, or re-evaluate social obligations. If misunderstandings occurred in your network, this is the phase to bring them into clarity, gently. Old ambitions may resurface, but with a wiser eye, not everything you once wanted fits who you are becoming. This is a period to refine your goals, not chase them aggressively. You may revise your plans regarding group collaborations, professional alliances, social media presence, or community involvement. With Mercury ruling your 10th house, your career vision is recalibrated here. You begin seeing which people genuinely support your growth and which connections cost you peace. Just 3 days after this shift, Venus exits Libra and enters Scorpio. While Mercury revisits friendships and ambitions, Venus, ruler of your 11th house, moves into the 12th house of emotional release. This suggests a gentle detachment from old expectations, a soft closing of certain chapters, and emotional maturity regarding relationships and social hopes. Some Sagittarius individuals may find themselves reconnecting with spiritual communities, distant mentors, or creative solitude. Romantic affairs that were unclear may gain emotional clarity, not through confrontation but through inner knowing. If a vision or dream feels outdated, you quietly let it go and create space for a truer aspiration. Financial patterns, especially connected to partnerships or long-term plans, may also be reviewed. Avoid making significant commitments until Mercury moves direct. This retrograde encourages you to trust timing, not force outcomes. As Mercury later re-enters Scorpio after stationing direct, clarity returns, your mind feels lighter, and your ambitions feel rooted in authenticity rather than expectation. This retrograde strips illusions, resets priorities, and strengthens your spiritual backbone. You learn to choose peace over noise, alignment over crowd validation, and wisdom over urgency. For Sagittarius, a sign born to explore truth, this period teaches that the most profound journey is the inward one. When you emerge, your steps are guided not just by optimism, but by insight and soul-anchored direction. For Capricorn, Mercury governs 2 very significant houses, the 6th house of service, debts, daily routines, health habits, work responsibilities, problem-solving, competition, and conflict resolution, and the 9th house of Dharma, higher knowledge, long-distance travel, mentors, ethical values, and fortune. When Mercury retrogrades through your 11th house in Scorpio and slips back into your 10th house in Libra, a strong karmic recalibration takes place around your ambitions, your social and professional network, your goals, and your long-term destiny path. This transit puts your dreams, your work ethic, your relationships with colleagues, and your faith about the future under deep review. What seems delayed or rearranged externally is actually restructuring your internal belief, discipline, and clarity. As a Saturn-ruled sign, you understand that slow but steady realignment leads to lasting success, and this retrograde emphasizes that truth. The retrograde begins in the 11th house in Scorpio. The 11th house represents large goals, circles of influence, elder siblings, professional communities, business expansion, achievements, and financial gains. Mercury here sharpens your awareness of who you associate with, why you pursue the goals you do, and how your ambitions align, or do not align, with your inner values. Scorpio brings depth and secrecy. You may take a step back from certain friendships or networks to evaluate authenticity. Conversations with friends or colleagues may resurface, old collaborations may be revisited, or unresolved misunderstandings in professional circles may return for closure. This is not a time to rush ahead with alliances or projects. Instead, you refine what truly supports your long-term growth and withdraw from what drains your energy. Mercury ruling your 6th house means day-to-day activities, stress management, and work responsibilities connect with this review. You may feel compelled to restructure how you handle tasks, deadlines, and workplace communication. Workload may shift, routines may need repair, or mental stress may rise if you resist revisiting old problems. Mercury also rules your 9th house of ethics and purpose, meaning this period becomes a philosophical reevaluation too. You may reflect on whether your ambitions align with your belief system, whether your social circle uplifts your principles, and whether your long-term goals are spiritually fulfilling. A wiser, deeper sense of direction begins to form. Mars travels through Scorpio alongside Mercury, intensifying the 11th house themes. Ambition grows sharper, desire to achieve wakes up powerfully, but frustration can surface if progress seems slow. Mars gives courage to break away from shallow associations, competitive environments, or goals that once felt important but now feel hollow. Yet Mars-Mercury energy can make conversations heated. Be cautious with words in professional settings. Misunderstandings in groups, aggressive communication, or ego clashes can arise if you force your agenda. Use this fire to sharpen strategy rather than push outcomes prematurely. Mars wants action, Mercury wants reflection. Balance both by working behind the scenes, refining methods, and silently preparing for the next move. On November 16th, the Sun joins Mercury and Mars in Scorpio. This amplifies your awareness of status, recognition, and the desire to leave a meaningful mark on your world. The Sun brings light to hidden motives, not only of others, but within yourself. Scorpio teaches you to purify ambition, transform hunger into purpose. The Sun here can make you shine socially, but during retrograde, it first reveals insecurities or blind spots that need correction. Accept these revelations without defensiveness. They make you stronger. Throughout this time, exalted Jupiter in Cancer casts a benefic aspect onto your 11th house from the 7th. Though retrograde, Jupiter protects your social standing, blesses your alliances, and ensures that the right people stay in your life even while you let go of unaligned ones. Partnerships and professional deals receive divine guidance. If something pauses, trust there is a reason. Saturn retrograde in Pisces, meanwhile, refines communication, decision-making, and thought processes. Together, Mercury, Jupiter, and Saturn retrograde create a period of philosophical maturity, social cleansing, and career redirection. On November 23rd, Mercury slips back into Libra, your 10th house of career, authority, public reputation, and responsibilities. Now the focus shifts fully from external networks to your profession and role in society. You may rethink career goals, negotiate job conditions, revisit previous opportunities, or reconsider your approach to leadership. If misunderstandings with superiors, colleagues, or clients have existed, this is the time they return for resolution. Collaboration requires diplomacy. You may feel called to upgrade your professional identity or long-term path. Any confusion here is productive. It clears indecision and strengthens discipline. Communication in the workplace becomes important. Think twice before speaking and listen deeply before responding. 3 days after Mercury enters Libra, Venus leaves Libra and moves into Scorpio. As Venus, ruler of your 10th house, moves away from your career sector just as Mercury retrogrades there, professional motivation temporarily shifts inward. Instead of expanding aggressively, you refine, reorganize, and strengthen your foundation quietly. If opportunities slow, take it as divine pacing, not stagnation. Venus in Scorpio also suggests deeper evaluation of partnerships, contracts, and agreements. You may feel compelled to renegotiate terms or expectations in your career or business arrangements, but this is preparation energy, not execution energy. The universe is aligning you with authentic growth, not superficial progress. Financial matters linked to networks, earnings, or bonuses may go through delay or reconsideration. You may question transactional relationships, those that thrive only when you are offering support or resources. Lessons around boundary setting, self-respect, and knowing who truly stands with you become important. For some Capricorn individuals, old mentors or colleagues may reappear, offering advice or opportunity tied to past efforts. Others may take time to quietly strategize next steps, preparing for career advancement after Mercury's direct motion. Emotionally, you may feel a mixture of ambition and introspection. You are being called to rise but also to refine. Avoid comparing your pace to others. Capricorn climbs mountains slowly but never comes down empty-handed. Mercury retrograde teaches you that growth is not always visible, but always happening beneath the surface. You may find yourself reading more, studying business or management strategies, reevaluating educational goals, or seeking spiritual meaning in your ambitions. By the time Mercury turns direct and re-enters Scorpio in December, clarity returns. Your network becomes purified, your goals sharpen, your career direction steadier, and your mindset calmer and wiser. What remains after this retrograde is aligned with your higher purpose. You emerge with a stronger sense of mission, renewed clarity about your priorities, and a disciplined yet flexible approach toward career growth. You are not being slowed, you are being fortified. For Aquarius, Mercury governs your 5th house of creativity, intelligence, education, romance, children, speculation, and personal expression, as well as your 8th house of deep transformation, shared resources, emotional vulnerability, occult knowledge, sudden changes, psychological depth, and karmic shifts. When Mercury retrogrades through your 10th house in Scorpio and later moves back into your 9th house in Libra, you enter a period of intense inner assessment around your career direction, life philosophy, higher learning, family responsibilities, and your overall sense of purpose. This transit is not merely mental, it reshapes your approach to power, discipline, ethics, and emotional authenticity in professional and academic matters. Aquarius, a sign often ahead of its time mentally, may feel the universe slowing the future so you can repair and realign the foundation. The retrograde begins in Scorpio in your 10th house, the sector of career, authority, recognition, responsibilities, long-term legacy, and relationship with societal roles. Mercury here turns your analytical focus toward your profession, public life, and decision-making pattern. Scorpio brings intensity, secrecy, and deep questioning. You may find yourself rethinking career goals, the motivation behind your ambitions, and the emotional cost of professional commitments. Conversations with authority figures, bosses, or clients may resurface. A past professional project, proposal, or responsibility may come back for revision or reevaluation. Old ambitions you once shelved could re-enter your mind, now with a clearer sense of feasibility or urgency. Because Mercury rules your 8th house, shared finances, taxes, joint ventures, and emotional boundaries may also require attention. You might review investment plans, insurance matters, or collaborative financial agreements. Emotional dynamics in career settings become more transparent. Power plays, silent hierarchies, and manipulation patterns that were invisible earlier may suddenly feel obvious. Scorpio energy reveals truth, sometimes uncomfortably but always meaningfully. Mercury retrograde demands reflection, not reaction. Rather than confronting a professional issue impulsively, study the situation, observe motives, and prepare your strategy in silence. Mercury also rules your 5th house, so academic projects, creative pursuits, romantic communication, and responsibilities toward children undergo review. Students may revisit old study habits or revise important assignments. Creative professionals may rethink branding, artistic direction, or intellectual output. Romantic feelings may move inward. Instead of outward expression, you quietly evaluate your emotional expectations and healing needs. The 5th house connects to confidence, and confidence grows now through introspection, not external applause. Mars joins Mercury in Scorpio, fueling ambition but also raising emotional intensity. Your desire to prove yourself, lead, or transform your professional status strengthens. But Mars-Mercury together can bring argumentative energy, especially in work environments. You may feel like defending your ideas, asserting your authority, or confronting pressure. Yet patience is key. Channel Mars into strategic discipline, professional research, and personal development instead of confrontation. Exercising discipline, physical movement, or structured routines will help prevent restlessness or frustration from overwhelming you. On November 16th, the Sun enters Scorpio, joining Mercury and Mars. The Sun illuminates your public image and exposes internal motivations for career pursuit. Ego, pride, or insecurity around recognition may surface, not to damage you but to mature you. The Sun's light brings clarity, but Mercury retrograde slows execution. Let insights guide you quietly until the path clears. Avoid ego battles in professional environments. Instead, focus on long-term dignity and self-mastery. This period is about strengthening your inner authority, not rushing external validation. Jupiter, exalted in Cancer, aspects Scorpio, providing wisdom and emotional grounding during this cycle. Jupiter's retrograde nature turns your attention inward. Philosophy and spirituality become guiding lights. You learn to approach career decisions not just intellectually but with emotional intelligence and ethical clarity. Meanwhile, Saturn, your chart lord, is retrograde in Pisces in your second house, deepening lessons around financial stability, self-worth, and responsible communication. With Mercury, Jupiter, and Saturn retrograde together, the universe slows outer momentum to strengthen inner structure. Your karmic axis is active, pushing you toward maturity and purpose-aligned ambition. On November 23rd, Mercury moves back into Libra, your ninth house of higher learning, divine blessings, spiritual teachers, foreign travel, publishing, philosophy, and dharma. The mental focus shifts from professional action to higher perspective. You may revisit old teachings, travel plans, academic goals, or spiritual practices. If you have unfinished studies or certifications, this period encourages you to return to them. Conversations with mentors or father figures may resume, perhaps to repair misunderstandings or gain clarity. 3 days after Mercury returns to Libra, Venus leaves Libra and enters Scorpio. Emotional support shifts away from philosophical alignment toward intense internal ambition. Venus leaving Libra means diplomacy in relationships requires conscious effort. Instead of automatic harmony, you choose fairness and respect through awareness. With Rahu currently in Aquarius amplifying your identity evolution, this transit becomes a psychological maturation phase. You are not the person you were, and this retrograde helps you catch up emotionally with your evolving identity. Rahu pushes innovation. Mercury retrograde adds refinement so ambition does not outpace wisdom. Financial caution remains important during this phase. Avoid impulsive spending or risky investments. Career decisions benefit from patience and strategic planning. Networking should be thoughtful. Old professional contacts may reemerge, but discern inner intent before reconnecting. Students may revisit coursework or refine qualifications. Writers, researchers, and visionaries may rework long-term plans, manuscripts, or projects. Romantically, you may evaluate whether emotional depth and authenticity are present in your connection. This is not a superficial romantic transit. It seeks truth and depth. When Mercury turns direct and re-enters Scorpio in December, your professional clarity returns. You emerge sharper, wiser, emotionally grounded, and intellectually stronger. This retrograde strengthens your power to lead with maturity, not reactivity, with inner faith, not insecurity, with insight, not haste. You learn to carry your ambition with grace, your intelligence with humility, and your power with emotional wisdom. For Pisces, Mercury rules two very sensitive and relationship-oriented houses: the fourth house of emotional roots, home life, mother energy, inner peace, and mental stability, and the seventh house of marriage, partnerships, commitments, collaborations, and agreements. When Mercury retrogrades in your ninth house in Scorpio and later moves back into your eighth house in Libra, this phase becomes deeply karmic and transformative regarding relationships, emotional foundations, belief systems, and long-term commitments. You are entering a period where the universe asks you to revisit faith, redefine trust, heal wounds from the past, and evaluate how your emotional patterns influence life direction. For a compassionate and intuitive sign like Pisces, this retrograde operates like a spiritual cleansing, shedding illusions, clarifying purpose, and strengthening internal boundaries. The retrograde begins in Scorpio, your ninth house of Dharma, spiritual guidance, higher learning, long-distance travel, belief systems, teachers, and philosophical frameworks. Mercury here turns your mind toward your relationship with destiny, learning, and the meaning behind life's experiences. Scorpio's influence makes this introspection intense. Past beliefs may crumble, only to be replaced by deeper spiritual truth. Old teachings you once accepted may now feel incomplete. You may revisit subjects of study, rethink educational goals, or reconnect with spiritual literature, mentors, or gurus. A previous teacher or belief system may come back into your awareness for final understanding, not to bind you, but to release you into a more mature spiritual vision. Because Mercury rules your 4th house, emotional memory resurfaces. You may reflect on your upbringing, your mother's influence, home-related patterns, or unresolved emotional imprints that shaped your worldview. Pisces tends to absorb emotions like water absorbing currents. This retrograde helps you identify which emotional patterns are yours and which are inherited or influenced by family or environment. If you have been holding on to beliefs based on fear, duty, or emotional loyalty rather than truth, this period dismantles them gently but firmly. It is not a crisis of faith, it is refinement of faith. Because Mercury also rules your 7th house, relationship philosophy and dynamics come under review. You may reconsider what partnership means to you, how you communicate in relationships, and whether your expectations are aligned with emotional reality. For some Pisces individuals, old relationships or memories of partners may reemerge, not always physically, but mentally and spiritually, to offer closure or clarity. Mars in Scorpio joins Mercury, intensifying belief revision and spiritual courage. Mars pushes you to confront fears, question old conditioning, and break patterns that kept you small. But Mars-Mercury can also spark debates about beliefs, values, or philosophical differences with partners. Avoid forcing opinions or reacting emotionally to ideological disagreements. Instead, engage in quiet inquiry. Use Mars as spiritual fire, for meditation, study, or disciplined self-reflection, rather than argument. This energy has the potential to ignite your intellectual passion and awaken dormant spiritual power if channeled consciously. On November 16th, the Sun enters Scorpio, joining Mercury and Mars. The Sun illuminates your higher mind and exposes hidden beliefs, suppressed spiritual desires, and unadmitted aspirations. Ego may feel challenged as philosophical certainties dissolve, but this is expansion, not loss. The Sun encourages you to take ownership of your spiritual path, not follow blindly. It also spotlights teachers, mentors, or father figures. If relationships in these areas hold unresolved karma, truth emerges now. Ego dissolves into humility, and humility becomes strength. Meanwhile, exalted Jupiter in Cancer casts a rich 5th aspect blessing on Scorpio. Jupiter is your chart ruler, so even in retrograde, it protects your spiritual, emotional, and educational evolution. Its aspect encourages creative thinking, spiritual maturity, inner faith, and emotional healing. Jupiter whispers ancient wisdom into this period, urging trust in divine timing, not intellectual certainty. Saturn retrograde in Pisces in your 1st house simultaneously reshapes self-image and personal identity. You may feel quieter, more inward, more reflective. With Mercury, Jupiter, and Saturn retrograde together, outer life slows so inner truth can fully rise. You are not losing direction, you are refining it to match your soul frequency. On November 23rd, Mercury retrogrades back into Libra, your 8th house of transformation, shared resources, psychological depth, intimacy, vulnerability, secrets, karmic ties, and rebirth. The shift here is profound, from questioning beliefs to confronting deep emotional truth. The 8th house is where souls shed old skins. Emotional patterns, fears around intimacy, trust issues, and subconscious attachments rise to the surface. This may be a time of reviewing financial partnerships, joint investments, inheritances, or debts. Conversations about shared resources may return. If emotional boundaries in relationships have been unclear, this retrograde clarifies them through introspection, not confrontation. Libra energy makes you think about fairness, balance, and emotional reciprocity. You may evaluate whether your relationships operate on mutual emotional exchange or silent emotional sacrifice. Pisces often gives more than it receives. This transit reveals where emotional generosity has been taken for granted or misused. It also shows where you have given without allowing yourself to receive. Emotional honesty and boundary healing become central themes. 3 days later, Venus exits Libra and enters Scorpio. The heart leaves the transformational zone just as the mind enters it. This signals emotional maturation around intimacy, values, and trust. Venus in Scorpio intensifies emotional desires and spiritual longing but also purifies attachment patterns. You may crave depth, authenticity, and soul connection more than ever, both in love and spiritual life. As Mercury retreats into emotional layers, Venus moves into higher wisdom. Your heart and mind cross paths but travel opposite directions, forcing balance between emotional release and soul evolution. During this retrograde, avoid rushed commitments in marriage, finances, or investments. Let conversations unfold naturally, without forcing outcomes. Dreams and intuition become strong guides. Healing may come in silence, meditation, prayer, or honest emotional expression. You may revisit past teachings, review inner wounds, and reset relationship expectations. Instead of seeking outside validation, you begin looking inward for truth. As Mercury moves direct and returns to Scorpio in December, your spiritual compass aligns again, stronger, wiser, more grounded in truth. You emerge with refined beliefs, renewed emotional clarity, deeper trust in life, and stronger inner stability. This retrograde is a rite of passage, dissolving outdated emotional conditioning, healing karmic knots, and realigning your destiny with your spiritual path. Pisces evolves not through force but through surrender, wisdom, and compassion, and this cycle strengthens all three. As we conclude this episode, please keep in mind that these insights are based on the Sidereal Zodiac system used in Vedic Astrology, which differs from the tropical system by approximately 24 degrees. These are general predictions, and outcomes will vary depending on your individual birth chart. The influence of transits is deeply shaped by your ongoing dasha periods and the specific placement of planets in your natal chart. What may be a time of progress for one person could mark a period of reflection or challenge for another. This is why it's essential to interpret transits within the context of your unique chart. If you're seeking a more personalized understanding of how current transits may impact you, or if you have specific questions about your birth chart, feel free to reach out to us. If you found this content helpful, please consider liking the video, sharing it with others who may benefit, and subscribing to our channel. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you don't miss future updates. Thank you for watching. We look forward to continuing to share deeper astrological insights with you. Until next time, stay aware, keep learning, and keep shining bright.